What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Battlefield Project podcast. I am your host, Matthew Rhoda, and we are the podcast for people who understand that life is a battle and only the strong will thrive. I am joined by my friend here, Michelle Hill, who I will introduce in a moment. But before I do, I will do my normal introduction and request, which is if you're watching this episode and you get any value out of it, if it inspires you, makes you laugh, makes you think, if you think someone in your life would get value out of this episode, please share it with them. The whole purpose behind this podcast is very specific, which is I want to show everybody out there that every single human being in the world has their own battles that they must fight their way through. No one has a yellow brick road. No one has the perfect rainbow life. Everybody has some struggles. The difference between the successful, happy people that you come across in life and then the people who play the victim card, the successful, happy people will fight their way through those battles and they'll come out stronger on the other side. So my goal is to bring on guests, have them share their battles, and then inspire all of you out there listening to know that no matter what life throws at you, you have the choice to fight your way through those battles. And if when you do, you will come out stronger on the other side. So without further ado, I have my friend Michelle here. She is the owner of All Junked Up, which is a junk removal company. She's been married 13 years. They've been together for almost 20 years. She said her husband would tell you it feels like it's been 200 years. And I said, that's like the common response I hear from all husbands. It's like, it's been way longer. It feels way longer than it really is. And then she has one child and 3 stepkids who are all grown, out of the house, and living their best life too. So Michelle, thanks for joining me. I'm excited to hear from you today.
Awesome. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to share my story as well.
My pleasure. I appreciate you being here. So yeah, whatever you're comfortable sharing with our audience, some battles that you've had to fight in your life, I'm eager to hear, and I'm sure everyone else listening is as well.
So like most people, I've had many battles. My battle started at 5. I was sexually molested by neighbors when we lived in California. And, you know, you're a kid, you're told not to say anything, so I didn't. And so I don't know how much long, I was about 5, and we moved to Texas when I was about 7 or 8. So this is I'll date my age. It's back in the late 70s.
Okay.
And yeah, way back. And so the area we moved to, they were just, starting to build up the community. They were still building houses. It was a lot of empty fields. And I had some neighbors, and one of my neighbors was a pilot for one of the commercial planes. And he had like a Ferrari, he had a tennis court, he had a pool. And you walk in his house and you go in the bar area and you could see people swimming under the water. Yeah. And then he had like all these arcade games, dating again, but arcade games.
I played arcade games growing up, so I get
it. And I would go over there all the time, and then he started sexually molesting me. And so to not drag this on forever, all my life, I don't know why, but I had male babysitters, was sexually assaulted by them. I had, it was either family, friends, neighbors, or strangers. So apparently I wore it on my head that I was just, great for abuse. Yeah. And of course I didn't know. I grew up in a very extremely dysfunctional family. So my mom spent a lot of time dealing with my dad, and my brother and I, just kind of got put to the side because it wasn't physically abusive. They fought a lot. It was more mental, and emotional. And so, we didn't ask questions. I was handed a book. I don't even remember how old I was, but what's happening to me. And that's kind of how I learned. I didn't know. So, and I wasn't inquisitive, so, this went on till I was about 17, off and on. And I was on a swim team, and I would get vulgar phone calls, but they didn't start out that way. It was just, I'd get home. They knew when I came home, and they would ask me strange questions that were, like, how is your swimming? And then how was your bathing suit? And then it just went weird after that.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was okay to hang up. So I sat there, as uncomfortable it was, and listened. So, and I'm sharing this because all this time I didn't know it was okay to say anything. Mm-hmm. So the neighbor that had started molesting me, that had the Ferrari and stuff, he would take me in his Ferrari and we would go to Dallas and look at Lamborghinis. So I was getting to do a lot of cool stuff, you know, and as a kid, I was 7, 8, you know, I thought this was the world. Yep. And you kind of just put up with everything else. And unfortunately, he had molested some other girls in the neighborhood way after me. And luckily, though, they did say something. Mm-hmm. He did go to jail for that.
Good.
But we lived over there for several years until my parents divorced. Then we moved about a mile away. And so my backyard backed up to the back of YMCA. So I would go there for my swim team, right? And my neighbors next door were, I don't know, 5 to 7 years older than I was. And so at one point they had gang raped me. And so again, it was always, you know, family friends that, you know, or I thought they were family friends. I didn't know, strangers or neighbors. And so it went on to 17. And I was in and out from 12 to 17. I was in and out of girls' homes and rehabs because my parents didn't understand why I was such a good kid and then I wasn't. You know, at 12, I started getting into drugs and into trouble. And I'm not mad at him. Of course, I didn't like it at the time, but I went to a girls' home in Mississippi and it was extremely abusive. And they had no idea, you know, that's not what they're being told. Mm-hmm. And so at 6 months, you got to stay with your parents in town. And I was planning on running away because there was no other way to get out of this girls' home.
Yeah.
And it was abusive. My first night there, I came in, and I'm not going to cuss because I don't know if I can cuss on your podcast.
You may. But go for it. Yeah.
Okay. So my dad brought me, and they're showing me everything around. I'm like, fuck this. I hate this. I don't care. Fuck you. Fuck you. Yeah. You know, I was mad. And they're like, you can't say that. You can't say that. Fuck you. Can't say that. So the first night, I'm not proud of this. And thankfully, God is so much smarter than I am. But I tried to burn the place down by putting my curling iron in the Bible. I just wanted out. Yeah. I didn't care. I got caught, and I'll never regret that. Because I didn't think of the consequences to that, you know. And so I got caught and I got my ass beat. I mean, they would beat you with a paddle, and it was so bad. It was bruises, you know. They read your income and outgoing mail. I remember writing home saying, I met this girl here who happened to live close to me in Texas, and we were going to go shopping. I mean, nothing bad, but we got beat over it. Wow. So I was there 5 months. The state came in and shut it down. And I was sent to another home in Wichita, Kansas. And so that home was a bit more lenient. My first night there, it was in the country. I'm not a country girl. I have no idea about the country. But I learned quite a bit about it that night because I took off. I ran away from the home. And I'm running through fields, and apparently I look horrid. And I've attracted every kind of sticker you can attract on your sweater. And I'm running through these fields, and I was walking down this road. It's got no light, you know, it's dark. And this car literally pulled in the middle of the road, and they go, are you okay? And, you know, I'm lying. I'm like, yeah, my car broke down. And because I didn't want to get in the car. And then this lady goes, are you sure? We can give you a ride to town. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. You know, because I didn't think any better. Right. Yep. And they did. They were great people. Again, it's funny because I see God in all my life, you know, and I don't regret anything that's happened because it made me who I am today. But they did take me into town, and people were chunking things at me. Apparently I looked pretty bad. So I tried to go down the street to avoid them, and it was a cul-de-sac. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. So I called the home and had them pick me up. I was there about 1.5 years, and my mom came. It was a great visit. I don't know what happened. I flipped out and caused riots and eventually got kicked out. Oh. And then I was in 2 rehabs. I think, in between 12 and 17. The first rehab was actually an adult unit. I was 14, 15, I don't know, somewhere in there. And they were still working on building the adolescent unit, so it wasn't ready yet. So I had to stay on the adult unit, and I was getting into fights with the adults, and it was just a big problem. So eventually they got the adolescent built. They take me up there, and I kind of go into shock because this unit's locked. I had a little bit more freedom downstairs, and they were telling me to do stuff, and I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I'm sitting in the hallway. Just leave me alone. And they're no, we want you to get up and go do this. And I'm like, no. And I would just sit there. So they call what they call a doctor rush. Okay. And that is where they get about, I don't know, 7 or 8 people. They literally pick you up and strap you to the bed. So I'm in your bed screaming. 5 hours. Okay. It took me 5 hours to figure out if I shut up, I can get out of the bed, right? They'll unstrap me. But it's the most miserable thing because, you can't do anything. There's literally nothing you can do. And it is, I don't even know how to explain it. It just sucked. And sucked is just like a light word for it. Yeah. But it took me 5 hours to figure out, okay, there's a game to play here. So I learned the game really fast, right? And that is, I give them what they want. I give them what they want to hear. And I started doing that and realizing when I played this game, I got out of these places faster, And so my second rehab, I was closer to 17. And I think I was only there a couple months. And I knew after that, there was nothing they could do. They couldn't lock me up anymore because I was, almost 18. Yep. So from 12 to 17, I was in and out of girls' homes and rehabs. And every time I came out of one, I came out doing harder drugs. At the point where I started doing meth, when I did meth, I ate it in toilet paper, which was completely disgusting. Oh. Completely.
Like just that, like goosebumps, like chills. Like, oh, that sounds awful. Like, oh.
It was nasty. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I can't do this anymore. And people were like, oh, smoke it, right? So I would learn how to do that. So I started smoking it, and then it wasn't enough. And then I started snorting it, and then that wasn't enough. So then, and I'm like, I'm never going to get into shooting up. I'm never going to do that. Yep. And I've learned, even to this day, I just don't ever say the word never anymore because bullshit happens. Yep. So I did start shooting up, and then I was addicted to the rush, and I was shooting up like every 10 minutes. And I didn't care if I died. I was wanting to die. All my life, I thought I was a piece of shit because in junior high, my friends knew what they wanted to do when they grew up, and I didn't. I didn't know it was okay to not know what you wanted to do. Yep. And so to me, I felt like I had no purpose. Why am I even here? I would literally put myself in extremely bad situations and then see if I could get out. So I had one situation where this guy's like, I'm going to rape you. And I'm like, dude, you can't. I'm a prostitute. You have to pay me. And he goes, well, I don't have any money. I'm like, okay, I can't help you. Gotta go. And it was stuff like that. Yeah. I would just bad things. And again, thankfully, God is just, watched out for me because I had no idea that I was even a halfway decent person. I just didn't. I thought I was a horrible kid. I was doing horrible things. I was horrible with my family. My friends were all druggies. Just nothing was good.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, when I was 18, I met my first late husband, and I met him actually in a bar. And before he invited me, he asked me this question. I had a biker guy ask me if I wanted to stay with him because I was having problems with my mom. And it took me a week, and I realized he was going to prostitute me. So no.
Mm-hmm.
And then my husband, who was 20 years older, had asked me if I wanted to quit drugs. And I said, hell no, I'm not quitting drugs. And a week later, I said, okay, I'm ready to quit. And he said, okay, that was the only string attached, right? So he offered me refuge, and I stayed with him. He never did anything wrong. I took one of his pills because he was on like 24 medications. So this guy was 6'2", 330 pounds. Took one of his pills, and it knocked me out for 3 days. So I went through all that withdrawal during that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't even remember that. And then a few months later, we ended up getting married. So this is my first late husband. And he was disabled when I met him. His mom was disabled. And in the 90s, I had my son with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so for 10 years, 24/7, I took care of him, his mom, and raised our son. And I'm like, I wanted to be a housewife because I didn't even know. I had no skills. I had nothing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I quit school in the 11th grade. And so I felt like I had nothing. I didn't know what I could do. And so to me, especially with the girls' homes, it was kind of embedded in you, be a housewife and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. And when you are taking care of disabled people, you're not a housewife. You're a caretaker.
Yep.
Completely different thing. And let me tell you, I have no regrets. It was the hardest job. There is nothing. I could go dig a sewer ditch and it will be nothing in comparison of taking care of people who are disabled.
Yep.
And so it was 10 years, 24/7 between the three of them. And I say 24/7 because my late husband couldn't sleep at night. So I had to drive him around. And so it was very hard for me to go do things because he constantly needed me there.
Yep.
And so I would get a nap over here for an hour or a nap over here for an hour. And I was 18 when I met him. I was 29 when he died. So my prime time of my life, I was taking care of my family. And I learned so much. Okay. So he had an IQ of 168. I'm like, God's punishing you, right? And he's like, why? And I go, because my IQ is like nowhere near there. So, you got that.
Yeah. Yeah, you win that one.
Yeah. But I was more like the gesture. That's what he wanted. He wanted the silliness, the fun, because he was miserable with his problems. He was constantly hurting. And I was that distraction from his physical pain and, everything like that. And so we ended up inventing a parking brake for shopping carts, and we had sold it to a couple stores, and we did that up to the point that it was just too much, and he was getting worse, and I couldn't do it all. And so he had passed away in 2000, and he was 48. He died of his fourth heart attack. And so it's been 23 years. And so I was pissed. I was kind of rebellious with God for like 3 years. I was just livid.
Yep.
And thankfully my mom would take my son over the summer. So, I didn't have to worry about him, but I was becoming an alcoholic. I was drinking a lot, all the time, but not where I was constantly drunk, but just, drinking. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yep, totally.
Okay. So, and then in 3 years, I'm like, okay, it's time to get it together and stuff like that. And during that marriage, I forgot, if you were going to call someone a burden, you would say it would be them, because I'm taking care of them.
Yep.
But I think my son was like 4, and it was just like the devil whispered in my ear, "You're a burden to your family. It's time for you to go." I didn't question it. I just said, okay, you're right. So again, I took pills prescribed for a man who is 6'2", 330 pounds. I took 2 of his pills, waited 30 minutes, took 2 of his pills, waited 30 minutes until I got to 10. So you're talking over a few hours. Then I waited another hour before I even told my husband. And I've never seen anybody pissed off in my life. I was always looking for pity, pity me, feel, play the victim, right? And he was pissed. I mean, he was livid. And there was no pity. There was no, oh, we'll get you help. It was, what the fuck did you do? And why did you think you had the right to do that? It was really like that. And it threw me back, but I already did it. So they had to take me and get my stomach pumped at the hospital. And that's horrible. Not the pumping part, the drinking the charcoal. You have to drink liquid charcoal. And not just one. I mean, I think I had to drink 7 or 8 cups, and it sounds exactly like that.
It's as awful as it sounds.
Oh yeah, it tastes just as bad as it sounds. Yes.
Yeah.
And I remember telling the doctors, I will never, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done, and I'll never do it again. I did not have to see any doctors after that, which surprised me. I mean, it didn't at the time, because I didn't know how. I've never done that before. And so, but I never had to follow up with doctors. I mean, it was just like my word was good, and that was it. And so I've realized, because I struggle with bipolar disorder, and it's when he died, it kind of, that's when it kicked in. So in 2000, I was struggling with that. And I don't know, I consider it kind of, I looked at being bipolar as self-centered. I don't know if that's generally how it is, but if I was struggling with something, people were like, oh, there's so much going on in the world, what you're going through is not so bad. And you're like, shut up. It is. It seems extreme. Everything is extreme when it's bad. And so at one point I was driving 18-wheelers. I was driving fuel trucks.
Okay.
And I was not medicated during this time, because I was fighting getting on medication. And so when I got mad, I was really bad. I was trying to run people off the road. And thankfully, they would kind of call my bluff too, right? Because I'm not actually not going to run them off the road, but I would kind of swerve in their lane, right? And I'm like, okay, this is bad. This is so bad. It feels good right now, but how's it going to feel when I kill a kid? How am I going to feel after that? And I always like to look at the consequences of what I'm doing. So, my mom's like, get on medication. And so I finally got on it. And I've learned with being bipolar, it's not just about taking medication. It's an everyday attitude check. I constantly keep it in check, And so, everything that I've ever been to is been a fight. But what I've learned is forgiveness is the greatest freedom I've ever had in my entire life. So the guy that ended up going to jail, the pilot, I sent him a letter in jail. I found out where he was at, and I told him I forgave him. Now, I never heard anything back. And then ironically, someone in Kevin in Apex did another story on me about that situation. So I researched it again and found him again and sent him another letter. So he's probably like, stop it. But I know he won't write back. But, everything that you go through, you can choose to continue to look at it like, look what happened to me, feel sorry for me, or you can take it and go, yeah, look what happened to me and how much better I am for it. I mean, I'm not going to say I deserved it. I'm not going to say that I would wish that on anyone,
I'm glad it
But
happened. Yeah, but
yeah,
it did.
it did. And if you asked if I could go back and change anything in my life, would I change anything? No. I
Yep.
would go through all that abuse again, because had I not gone through that, I would not have had the people in my life that I've had, especially my late husband. I love my husband now, don't get me wrong, but that was different.
Mm-hmm.
He saved my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was the smartest person I ever knew. 168 IQ. We could talk about boogers, we could talk about aliens. It did not matter. There was no judgment on
Mm-hmm.
anything. Nothing was dumb, you know. And it was just amazing conversations, and I learned so much, you know, especially when we invented the parking brake, and I'm having to learn about business, which I had no clue about. And so I look at my life as a journey, and I love what I've come out of, the cesspool that I'm out of. I mean, my family didn't think I'd make it to 20.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's been just an amazing journey. And I talk about my life, but I'm like, I don't see it, right?
Yep.
I'm like, okay, I know I went through this, but it's like I told my parents, because I didn't tell them the abuse, any of the abuse, until my son was about 4 or 5. I was already in my mid-20s. They had no idea all that time of the abuse that I went through. None. They just knew I was a good kid. I went into drugs, and now they're dealing with that.
Yep.
And it was so bad. I was such a bad kid. I mean, I was just one of those nightmare kids, you know,
Yeah.
nightmare. And I tell you, my son was nothing like this, because I'm like, I don't know how I would deal with a kid like that. It's
Yep.
bad, you know? And I told him, look, I'm not mad at y'all locking me up in these homes and in these rehabs. And it's not your fault that bad things happened in them. There's
Mm-hmm.
people everywhere. Bad things are going to happen where people are at.
Yep.
You know, it always surprises me when there's some small town and something bad happens. They're like, I don't know why it happened here. Because there's people.
It happens everywhere. Yeah.
There is no safe spot to go
Yep.
to. There's no corner of the world. And,
Yep.
you know, that's reality.
Yep.
But you take what you went through, and you make it your PowerPoint. You make it, you know, you're strong. You're stronger because of that.
Yep.
And so for that, I have no regrets.
Yeah.
I'd have been dead by now, or had that not had happened, I was a spoiled little brat. I would be a grown up spoiled little brat.
Yeah.
And I would be a miserable person to be around. I have no doubt, because
Yeah.
I remember my late husband trying to build me up, and because I had no self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently he wasn't doing it fast enough at one point, that he's like, you're stomping on me, and here I am trying to build you up. And I'm like, I had no idea, right? So metaphorically, if I bit him, right, he would metaphorically bite me back, right?
Yep.
And he's like, this is what it feels like when you say these things or you do these things to me. He would literally do them right back. And I'm like, I don't like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
So that's really how I learned. And again, I mean, so I think I would have been just a nasty person had the bad things not had happened, and had I not met the people in my life. And so I would go through all that again.
Yeah.
I would do it in a heartbeat, because the lessons that came from it were just, they'll never go away.
Life changing.
You know? Yeah, it is.
That's an amazing story, because it's a lifetime of abuse. Like, I've had a couple people come on and share like moments of like it happened a couple times in like a year of my life. Like, you had like almost 2 decades of it. And
Yeah.
so listening to all that, the two things that stuck out to me, and then I'm going to make a final point, because I think the third and final point was probably the most powerful that I've absorbed from hearing you speak. But the first two, because I'm a parent of 4, 3 girls and a little boy, and I'm hearing you say like you didn't know you had the choice or option to tell somebody what was going on. Like if you're a parent listening to this, and I don't know what that conversation is, like, you know, we all fumble our way through life in conversations and teaching our kids certain things, but like it's got to be taught to your kids some way, somehow, that like if someone does something to them that they don't want or confuses them or whatever, like you have to come to mommy and daddy. Like you have to trust us that we can help solve that problem. We can end, like there has to be that level of communication which you didn't get, which then led to like years and years of it because you didn't know the simple fact that like you had the right and responsibility, more the right as a child, to share that with an adult and have that adult step in and end it for you. And then the second point being when you said, you know, at one point you were with your adolescent friends and they all, yeah, at least you thought they all knew what they wanted to do with their lives. And you were like, I don't know, like I'm a waste of space then because I don't know, like, I mean, really, like I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life until I was like 32 or 33. Like, and that's the case for most successful or just even people in general. Is like you go through your adolescence, you go through your teens, even some of your 20s, through all of your 20s before you really understand like what your purpose on this earth is. So to teach that lesson to kids as well, like if something happens that you don't like, talk to an adult about it because the adult can step in and fix that for you or help you fix that. And B, you don't have to know what you want to do with your life, and you're still very, 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 very valuable and like worthwhile as a human being. Like it's your journey not to know what you're supposed to do or what you want to do. Like you have the right, the obligation to just live and screw up for 10, 20, 30 years because that's what life is until you finally have that aha moment where it's like, oh, this is what I was put on this earth to do. And like that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of pain and sorrow and growing and pain, like all the above to get to that point. So to hear you share that, it's just a stark, like shake me like again, like I think me and my wife do a pretty good job raising our kids, but like, okay, like that's a message you want to repeat to a child over and over and over and over again. So it becomes part of their like psyche is I don't have to know what I want to do in life. Like I just want to be a good kid. Like I just want to have fun in life. I want to be loved and I want to love. Like if that's all you do for the first 20, 30 years of your life, you're a success. And like you belong here and you deserve to be here. And then the last thing that I think is the most impressive thing that you said, you know, I say it all the time too. Like I wouldn't change my past. I got in trouble with the law a little bit. I was in drugs for 20 years and like a whole bunch of them and made a bunch of mistakes and hurt some people like through my actions and stuff, nothing like physical or anything like that. But, and I always say like, I wouldn't change any of it because I am who I am today and I love and appreciate who I am today. And if I had to change something in the past, but that changed who I was today, I wouldn't trade that because I love where I'm at. So I hear people say that all the time and it resonates with me because it's the mantra that I live by and I really believe it deep in my soul. But to hear you say that is even more impactful to me because again, like the mistakes that I made were all self-inflicted. Like I chose to get into drugs. I chose to steal money from someone. I chose to like, you know, use bad words and hurtful words to people that I loved and care. Like you were a kid being abused. Like you didn't choose that abuse. Like that happened to you and not your choosing. And it happened so long. Like it wasn't again like one occurrence. Like you had decades of that trauma inflicted upon you. And then for you to say like you still wouldn't trade that in, you wouldn't like because of who you are today, like kudos to you, more power to you. And as you were saying all that, I think the reason, and you mentioned like that you look back on your life and it's kind of like, yeah, it happened, but like it's almost like it's like a story that you're watching. It's not who you are. I think you have that detachment from that history and that pain because of forgiveness. Like I think that is the golden thread to pull out of this conversation for everybody listening is you can go through all of that. And if you have forgiveness in your heart, you can take all that heavy weight and like almost destruction that has been thrown on you and shed it and be the person you're meant to be without having to carry that heavy burden with you through life. And I think that only happens through forgiveness. Like I would imagine 9 out of 10 people, if it was like there were 10 of you lined up and 9 of them all 10 of you went through it and you're the 10th and you forgave and you are who you are today, it's because of being able to forgive. I'd be willing to bet the other 9 wouldn't forgive those people, wouldn't forgive the neighbor, all the other people that hurt them, the parents for not telling them that they should tell, like all that stuff. And you would probably be those other 9 are probably really bitter, unhappy people currently and or dead because they weren't able to shed that weight and it's holding them down in their current life and like their current circumstance and probably will hold them down until the day that they die. So the utmost respect and admiration for you. And like the fact that that's who you are. Like when you're saying that, you're like, I know it all happened. I'm like, holy shit, like she's that powerful, I think, because of forgiveness, because she was able to like cut that like past and history and pain out of her life. And like, of course it happened. So it's still like part of the story, but it's not your story because you forgave all of that, and that weight, through God or whatever you want to believe in, you were born anew. And like now you get to live a wonderful, beautiful, happy, uplifting life and not be afflicted by all that stuff that happened to you, because you had the power, were given the power, share the power with God to forgive those people and to move on. Like that is a spectacular accomplishment in your life that you've accomplished.
Well, thank you. Well, and something about forgiveness is when you don't forgive, I mean, you're the only one paying the price.
Suffers. Yep.
The other person doesn't care.
Yep.
They're done with it. So it's for you. Yeah. Forgiveness is for you. And it is so much, it just gives you so much freedom. And it took me years to get through this. I mean, it's not like I said, hey, I want this overnight. I mean, I got on medication for bipolar. Some people will tell you they don't have to take it. I will tell you, I will be on it the rest of my life. And I'm fine with that. I still struggle with suicidal thoughts. That will be a part of me the rest of my life. But that is, there's I don't think I've ever dealt with it. Anything's made me stronger than the fight with myself.
Yeah.
It's like that cartoon character where you got this and your arm is, you're choking yourself and your other arm's trying to pull it off
to save you. Yep.
And that's exactly what it feels like. And I've never fought anything harder than that, to not do it. And it is the craziest battle. But again, I look at myself and I go, okay, I've done bad things too. And I forgive myself for the bad things. I don't want to do them anymore. And so if I drive like an asshole one day, okay, God, I'm sorry. I need to tone it down. I need to work on this. It's an everyday thing.
Yeah. I'm impressed. Like thank you for sharing your story and being so transparent. Like, I've had, I don't know how many guests now, 50, and some of I'd say a small handful, and it have gone through some kind of like physical sexual abuse. And every time I hear it, I'm like, like it hurts my soul in some ways, because I'm like, why does evil in the world have to exist like that? Like it just like on a cosmic level bothers me, because it's like, how can someone do that to, like, especially a kid? Like it just boggles my mind. But then, flip that over and like, flush that like hurt out of my soul. And it's like, but it doesn't destroy, it doesn't destroy people. Like, and that gives me hope for humanity, that like, and like you said, there's no corners of the world where you get to go where it's butterflies and rainbows 24/7. Like everybody is dealing with maybe not sexual abuse, but verbal abuse or physical, or they're harming themselves, or maybe it's just an internal, like you said, internal dialogue where they're beating themselves up every day over stuff, or it's there's just hardships everywhere. And the fact that you're able to go through that from, whatever you said, like 7 when it started, or even younger, to like 20 almost, and still come out on the other side as strong as you are, it's a testament to the power of the human soul and just like fortitude. So I admire the crap out of you.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. And I appreciate the time you gave me on your podcast. Amazing.
You don't have to thank me for it. I'll probably say this over and over, but I was getting close to episode 50 and I'm like, maybe I'm going to pause for a little bit, because like I enjoy doing this so much, but like, there's like the marketer in me who's like, but there's barely anybody watching it and no one's subscribing. I only have 50 subs. And then I have just like when God needs to speak to you, he does. And like occasionally someone will be like, oh, I listened to that episode 3 times because like the message that was shared just like is renewing something in me. I'm like, okay, Matt, like, pull your big boy pants up and like get to work and do this on a weekly basis to get the message out. And really, you're welcome. Like, thank you for thanking me, but like, thank you for being willing to come on here, because all I do is hit the record button and then give the platform to incredible people like you. And it's your stories that I hope and believe, when shared with other people, and even if it's just one other person that hears this and maybe they dealt with abuse for a long part and they're still holding on to it and they haven't forgiven somebody and their life isn't what it should be right now, or could be, because of that resentment and pain and suffering that they're still holding on to, here's your story and goes, okay, wow. Like if this lady was able to go through that for almost 20 years and she was able to shed it, and like she still battles it, but like the majority of it she shed because of forgiveness. Like maybe I need to reach out and forgive those people, and then their life takes a totally different turn for the better because of your story. You don't need to thank me. Like that's collectively we're doing our job on this earth to inspire other people and to create positive change. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Where can people find you online if they want to get to, you know, connect with you on Facebook or you on Instagram, or like how could someone become friends with you and just kind of absorb more of your good energy moving forward?
Oh, thank you. So I'm not great at telling you where I'm at. I'm on Facebook.
Facebook. All right. I'll put a link in the show notes to your Facebook profile.
Michelle Hill. You don't have to put my business, but and then I'm on Instagram. I'm not, I think I'm under All Junked Up on Instagram, and I have a Facebook, alljunkedup.net, and then TikToks because but it's all, that's all on the business side. So but I do have a personal page on Facebook, and they're more than welcome to follow or DM me with any questions or anything like that. I'd be more than happy to help anybody out. And yeah, it just takes one person. If one person hears it, that's all that matters. Because you know,
because that's why I always say, like, that one person hears it, they share it, and then 3 people hear it, and then 2 of those people hear it, and it's just like that ripple effect that we can create to go out into the universe. So awesome, Michelle. Well, thank you very, very much. I appreciate this deeply. I know anyone listening to it that has had any similar experiences, or maybe, like I said in the beginning, someone in your life that you know went through something similar and needs to hear this message, share it with them, not so I can get more views on a video. Like that's, I'm mostly joking that I want that. Like, of course, there's part of me that's like, more views is better, but like ultimately let's change people's lives and make a positive difference in the world. Because at the end of the day, it's good versus evil. And if we can contribute to the good side of stuff, let's contribute as much as we humanly can to the good side of things to make sure good prevails over evil. So thank you, Michelle. I really, really appreciate you sharing it with everybody, and we'll see you on the battlefield.